When I was a kid, I found a hole in my backyard. I've spent a lot of time trying to forget the entire incident, but it's always with me, physically and mentally. Recently, a therapist told me that to work through most of this, exposure would be necessary, meaning I need to talk about this shit. I know where this road goes. As much as I don't want to relive this, I more so don't want my friends and family to think I'm crazy. I'm not crazy. I know what happened, even if it's not possible. I have the scars, I have the sleepless nights, I have the reoccurring nightmares to remind me. Summer of 1985. School was out and the unyielding Kansas sun beat down. After the record-breaking cold wave of that winter, contrasting heat had Kansans retreating for the comfort of their homes. 10-year-old me, hyper and bored, drove my mother up the wall. After several weeks of me creating messes and running all around the house, she finally had enough and ordered me to play in the backyard for most of the days. Due to the heat, I spent a lot of time under the old gnarled oak tree. The shade it produced encompassed a big portion of our large backyard. Singing their song, I'd try to find the cicadas hiding in the tree. Climbing, fighting imaginary enemies, or pretending the sun shining through the leaves was lava. The tree was my playground, my sanctuary. Until one day I discovered a hole under the tree. With the root of the tree making somewhat of an archway, it was almost more of a cave than a hole. Curiosity took hold over me. I was enthralled. Possibilities ran through my mind. On my hands and knees, I crawled over to inspect the opening. A faint glowing light emanated from within. I could hardly make it out from around the corner and down the spiraling slope. Crawling closer, my prepubescent mind swam with possibilities. I had convinced myself that the dim twinkling light had to be that of treasure. Approaching cautiously, I edged my way into the opening. It was almost high enough for me to stand in a hunched position, but to keep a better grip, I leaned in on my hands. Damp, cool air filled my nose with an old musty scent. My intrigue was piqued. I inched my way forward, the hard-packed dirt cold on my palms. After having wormed my way fully into the hole, the earth beneath my hands gave way. I tumbled forward head over heels. The dark descending tunnel opposed the white flashes dancing across my vision as my head repeatedly smashed against the solid ground. I must have blacked out. When I came to, I was laid out in an intersection of an elaborate tunnel system. The path which I had fallen down was not clear. It was so dark, and I was still disorientated from hitting my head. Feeling around, there were paths branching off in every direction. On top of that, a very evident and physical ethereal shift had occurred. The temperature had to be at least 130 degrees. Stifling and overbearing, the air carried a toxic coppery scent. Flickering weakly, a distant light beaconed through the dark. Stumbling forward, I headed towards it. The oppressing atmosphere made it hard to breathe. One hand on the uneven, jagged walls, and the other in front of me feeling for obstacles, I continued on. Like a moth to a flame, the light beckoned me deeper into the cavernous pit. Almost hypnotized, I droned toward the faint glow. In a hazy, dreamlike state, I'm not sure how long I fumbled through the dark tunnels. Could have been hours, could have been minutes. When my consciousness regained residence in my body, I found myself in a torch-lit tunnel. Confused, I looked around. Behind me was a dead-end solid wall. I thought I had only walked straight. My head was so hazy, but still. How? Looking back at the torches did less to ease my troubled mind. Who was lighting these, and why? They looked to be made of bone. Without warning, a skeletal hand gripped my shoulder hard from behind. I only caught a glimpse of its discolored, peeling flesh before I tried running. Its vice-like grip, unrelenting, pulled me back. Thank God my shirt ripped. Freed legs pulled me forward with a speed I didn't know I possessed. Blazing down shadowy torchlit corridors, the flames passed me by like overhead lights when driving through a tunnel. Hypnotic and disorienting, the flames weaved impossible pathways for me to follow, I ran straight into something solid and soft. White dots swam about my vision as I tried to orient myself from the seated position that some obstacle had forcibly placed me in. Eyes focused in on something before me. Feet. Disfigured and bare, I raised my gaze slowly, taking in every inch of the horrible, naked, emaciated corpse that blocked my path. Grayed skin tight on misshapen bone, peeling and ripped, revealing cracks of writhing beetles. Arms broken at the elbows like a reversed L. Forearms and mangled hands pointed out from the sides. Where its mouth had once been, now was just a cauterized, seamless patch of burnt flesh. Just below where the eyes would start, the entire top of its head was severed, unclean and spread out like a dish. The edges were pried out. Sticking out from within its ruined skull was a long, pink, fleshy tongue that sloshed about wildly. Taking an erratic step towards me, the vaguely human thing moaned from beneath its burnt face, while sickening wet sounds of its tongue exploring the boundaries of the subverted skull echoed in the confined space. Its arms flailed from side to side like windshield wipers as mangled fingers grasped for whatever had disturbed it. Me. The heartbeat and breath that fear and fascinated horror had been holding returned all at once, and I ran back the way I had came. Only now the cave was teeming with activity. The overbearing stench of death made it hard to think. Rotten arms and tendrils reached out at me from the shadows. Moaning and wailing pierced my ears. Bloating corpses roared in anger as I slipped their grasp and continued at a speed which they could not follow. Tears of despair poured from my face as the unrelenting horrors screamed for me, hungered for me. I've never known fear like I felt in those tunnels. Sprinting along, I came to an odd section of passage that seemed to taper off. By some miracle of instinct, I slowed my pace. Giant, fleshy mandibles posing as a path snapped towards me. Scrambling to a stop, I did everything I could to reverse my speed as the jaws snapped closer, grimy and festering in the scent of rot, and its putrid breath enveloped me. I was quicker, but not quick enough to see the shambling carcass that had approached from behind. Like something from Dr. Frankenstein's nightmares, crudely sewn-on arms protruded from its wrecked body. Somehow, they all worked. Slashing at me wildly with filthy, rancid claws, it came at me like a decaying, tormented windmill. Raking across my stomach, white-hot pain burned from within. Adrenaline pushed me past. I continued forward, bringing a hand to my ripped flesh. I felt something wet and snake-like. I looked down. God, I wish I hadn't, but I looked down and saw my own intestines protruding out from one of the deep gashes across my midsection. My consciousness began fading to black as panic raised me to a horrible flying sensation of surrealism. The next few minutes were a nightmarish blur of stumbling and being chased by mangled and reformed abominations. Claws, talons, and fingernails raked at my flesh. Hungry mouths moaned and screamed and begged for a piece of me. My blood led them to me like sharks to wounded prey. But it also gave me a path. Ahead was light. I pushed forward with more determination than I've ever had. Never have I longed for something more than I did for the light. Blinding and beautiful, it promised everything. I don't know how, but I emerged from that hole, bloody, tattered, and broken, but alive. As I crawled away from that hole in the ground, that hell, I felt something slithering out of me. I looked down to see my own intestines unspooling and disappearing back down that hole. I grabbed hold of my body's rope-like entrails to stop from losing my insides. Pain and extreme discomfort like you can't know. Being pulled, I began sliding back towards the hole. Bracing my feet on the ledges, I held onto my intestines. I screamed and cried for help. Hungry, dull, glowing eyes fixated on me from the dark depths, trying to pull me in. With a sickening rip, the fleshy rope snapped and I flung backwards. I don't remember much after that, other than crawling towards my house. I woke up in the hospital. I'd been in a coma for a week. Nobody believed what happened to me. The doctors said I must have fallen out of the tree in our backyard to explain my injuries. I don't know how that would explain the claw marks, the bite marks, or the 20 or so feet of missing intestines. And no, when they looked, there was no hole. I know what happened, and I know where I went. Believe me or not, but for your own sake, stay above ground.
Hello, mortals. The disciple here. So, what do you think? I've been working on, digging a little hole in my backyard. I would like to personally invite each and every one of you. No, seriously, I really am. So, I've put a shitload of work into digging this hole and, putting scary things around and, I hide down there and play some music in this fog, and when you come around the corner, I pop out and go, ha! So, really you should come and at least check it out. I put a lot of work into it, okay? So, don't be a dick. That's all I'm saying. Don't be a dick, man. So, anyways, if you like this video, I wrote the story, recorded it, did all the bullshit. If you liked it, like it, right? It's a bit redundant, but we get the point. Okay, so like it, maybe subscribe. That would be cool for me. I would like that. I'm making more videos and stuff. Or